ahead and get started. We are waiting for the state engineer's office along with the state environment department who are wrapping up a couple of things that said been indicated they'll be here in about 10 or 15 minutes, so we'll be able to visit with you through that duration. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Kim Carpenter. I'm the County Executive Officer of San Juan County, and I'm joined up here with my friends from the Environmental Protection Agency, among others, and my new friend who will explain to you that your organization. I always get this screwed up, Admiral.
Thanks for the promotion.
Yeah, I gave him a promotion yesterday. Yeah. So we're gonna. That's right. So anyway, what we're gonna do tonight is we're gonna give you some quick updates as to where we are. I know that we have. How many well users do we have in this room? Okay, I'm just curious if you've been alerted that as of earlier today, you are now able to utilize your well. Okay, I will leave it up to the Environment Department to explain to you some of the things, but as of this morning, any ban on the use of wells was lifted. And I'll leave it up to the Environment Department to give you some of the details and advisories. Let's get started with the updates. Today, of course, the ban was lifted on wells, and which is a very positive sign. Again, I don't want you to compare what's happening up in the corridor in the Animas on the Colorado side, because obviously we're a little bit behind with regard to the duration of what it took to get down here. The state engineer's office will have an announcement here shortly, but you know, we continue to progressively work in getting to the point to where we're trying to see some normalcy. At this particular time, we still have open, the National Guard Armory is still open, Michelle, correct, for showers? And update me a little bit more, Michelle. We stopped the showers at McGee Park, correct?
Everything is open except for, as far as water stations, except for the fire departments. The volunteer fire departments will close after tonight. All the other water stations are open if you need to use them. The only showers that are available, to my knowledge, are the National Guard showers. I think Farmington has some shower services open, but I'm not sure on the update on those. All of the livestock water areas at NAPI and contacting the extension office, all of that is still available. So there's a new flyer out here with updated information on it. So if you didn't grab that on your way through and you want to on your way out, it'll be there for you.
Good, thank you. I spent some time today with the U.S. Senator Martin Heinrich. Mr. Heinrich's assistant has provided me with an updated announcement after he visited with some officials from the Environmental Protection Agency. The EPA is not offering immediate reimbursements for damages from the Gold King mine water. It is not true that if someone submits a claim that by doing so they limit or waive future rights. So any of those rumors need to be dispelled with regard to that you're waiving any future rights. The EPA's Federal Tort Claims Act regulation provides that a person may amend their claim form at any time prior to reaching a settlement with the EPA or before the person files a lawsuit under the FTCA. Additionally, a person claiming an injury or damage has 2 years from the date of the event to file a claim with the EPA under the FTCA. While the EPA has made Form 95 available for filing a claim, the EPA has also noted on the Region 8 website that, quote, standard Form 95 is not required to present a claim under the FTCA, but it is a convenient format for supplying the information necessary to bring an FTCA claim. Please note that a completed form must state injury, death, or injury to or loss of property. So that's just a notation that Senator Heinrich wanted me to announce here. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our friends from the Environmental Protection Agency, and I think we're going to have some data discussed as well. So as you speak, please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. This is Mark Hayes with United States EPA, on-scene coordinator and acting incident commander for field operations for this response. And so just wanted to brief you guys on a few updates and basically let you know pretty much what our operations have been and what they continue to be. So we still continue to do surface water sampling and sediment sampling in the river. And I will tell you that we have some results that have come back from the surface water samples that we've collected, and it is looking very promising. And it is matching up with pretty much what the findings that the state has presented. And so that's very encouraging. And the sediment samples, we are expecting hopefully those to come in pretty soon and be finalized so we can present those to the public. We also will continue our assistance with the state at the fair. The individuals bringing in samples to have them screened from their drinking water wells or domestic wells. And so we're going to continue to assist with the efforts right there, and believe that is going to be completed tomorrow. So
What time?
I think it's around noon sometime, if I'm not mistaken. If you haven't had a chance to do that, we encourage you to grab a sample and bring it in and have it screened. We also will continue our efforts with the domestic well samplings also. We know the state has put out a release that has lifted the restrictions on the drinking water wells and domestic wells. We're going to continue because we have a list of individuals that we want to complete. So we want to make sure we satisfy that need. But that restriction has been lifted, and so we're going to continue our efforts there. We also have been assisting Bonnie and also the state with supplying water for irrigation and livestock needs, and also been working closely with some of the water systems to try to provide systems and help with the alternate routes and that sort of thing to provide water to and help out and assist the systems with providing water. So we're going to continue doing that, and hopefully we actually have a system that we're working with. I think it's the Morningside, I believe. Morningstar, I'm sorry. Morningstar, so we actually are assisting them with trying to provide water, and we have some material that's coming up, a pump that's coming up, and hopefully we can kind of get that installed and in place to help with providing water to those in need, because we understand that those supplies are running low. So we're doing our very best to try to fulfill and keep those supplies going. We also we've completed our initial sampling of sediments in the irrigation channels, and we actually have some results come back today, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And they are, everything is looking, showing up below screen levels. So that's looking pretty good there. So we're going to continue that effort and continue to work with the state and local counties to try to provide any information and provide service and make sure we monitor to make sure that there's no impact there. So, but from what we've seen from sampling that's been done so far, it looks pretty good. Then we also have continuing to have our people out assisting with providing information about EPA's response and pretty much our efforts and working with the state and local officials. So our community involvement coordinators are out and they're providing information, and they are taking questions and they're taking concerns, and they're getting all that information, and they're getting that to us so we can try to address those concerns and those needs. So we'll continue that effort. But we do have, we did have somebody from the environmental response team come down and hopefully shed some light on some of the data that we have so far. So, but that's just as far as the field operations, that's what we have going on. That's what we've continued just to let you guys know we've been continuing that effort, and we're going to continue doing that. So, but what we've seen from the results so far, it just seems like things are looking pretty good, and we want to. It's very encouraging. So, and hopefully it continues to be that way, and we can get the public back to some form of normalcy. So, but that's all I have at this time. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
You want to introduce your?
Yeah, I have my colleague Roberto Bonnier is in the front here, and he actually will be replacing me as incident commander for field operations. So Roberto has a wealth of experience and knowledge, and he can definitely continue on. And it's not, it's not us leaving or trying to shift places. It's really continuing the effort to try to provide and service those needs. So.
Didn't work. My name's David Charters. I just got here from New Jersey because if you're going to deal with anything hazardous, it should come from New Jersey. I'm a member of the EPA's Environmental Response Team, which is one of the national and international teams that EPA puts together to deal with emergencies. We're one of those groups that when things blow up, it's our job to run toward it instead of away from it. Just a long way from New Jersey. I've been running a long time. What I want to go over for this is some of the information that we've gotten in over the last couple of days. We've evaluated the data not only from here in New Mexico, but we've also looked at the origination of this this blowout, this 3 million gallons that came down. Under no circumstances should you infer that anything I say is in any way excusing or saying that the spill out of the Gold King mine was in any way positive. I will say some positive things about the water and the sediment, but there was nothing good about the 3 million gallons coming down the river. Simple, straightforward. For you to understand some of the things that we're comparing to on the I'm going to stand up because people in the back are going to stop looking like turtles. So, besides, really, you can look at this. What we do when we're doing assessments is we take two levels. One is a screening level. That level is not a level of concern, but rather a level that requires us to do more evaluations. It's like a tripwire. If it's below that, we're very confident that we're not making the decision of what might refer to as a false negative. In other words, we say it's not a problem when in fact it is a problem. So we go very conservative on those levels to make sure that if it's below the screening level, that screening level is very conservative. Once we have an exceedance of a screening level, that requires us to do a lot more work. It is not saying that a level above the screening level is necessarily bad. What we do is we do various scenarios at that point to find out whether or not the exposures that are to the water in this case are actually what's being seen, in quotes, by the people who are drinking the water, recreating in the water, seeing the sediment, playing in the sediment, getting that on the kids licking their hands, getting it into them. Then we derive a cleanup goal. The good news here is, at this point, we are not exceeding any of those screening levels at this point. So the issue is we haven't even hit the tripwires at this point. We did hit the tripwires in Colorado. We kicked the tripwires all the way down Cement Creek when this went out. Those were substantial levels. The good news / bad news is, obviously, when it hit the Animas, it was 3 million gallons, hitting a lot more gallons than that. Going down to the San Juan, hitting a lot more gallons than that. We hate to deal with it when we get the solution is dilution. That's bad. Unfortunately, that's what we dealt with in this case. It got ahead of us. We're sorry it got ahead of us. The intent was not to let it get ahead of us, but it did. So what we've had is we had that slug of water come from the Concrete Creek, so named, down to the Animas, down to the San Juan, down past here. It was 3 million gallons. That is not a small amount of water. But it's going into a much larger pool of water. The end result is, as I said, we have met our regional screening levels that we do at all sites to see. We are not tripping any of those screening levels. Remember, past the screening level, now we're going to really take significant effort to drive a cleanup goal. We're not over those levels. We are, in fact, below the maximum contaminant levels for drinking water. This is not saying you can go out and drink the water out of the San Juan River. I don't know what's in it. Bottom line to it is, I know the metals won't hurt you, but I don't know what else is in. I went to a spill down in South America. In the Essequibo River going through Guyana, there was not a metal in that river, and let me tell you, you do not want to be drinking that water. There are enough parasites to kill a horse. So I'm not telling you can go out. That may be a question for New Mexico, but my guess is you're drawing through a water treatment plant here? Yes. And they're taking care of what comes out the other end gets pumped to you. My point is, the metals that are in the river at this point are not exceeding our tripwires. As to the sediments, we put a not inconsiderable amount of metals into the stream. That said, we didn't put a lot of metals into the stream relative in a mining area. Once again, not acceptable for us to put any metals in that stream, but the 3 million gallons went downstream. Can't do anything about that. The difference on that, the yellow boy that colored the rivers, iron, not generally a problem to humans. What we generally run into with yellow boy is when it settles out, if there is enough of it over time, what it does is it smothers the insects that live on the bottom. When you smother the insects that live on the bottom, the fish don't have anything to eat. Then you lose the fish. The good news on this is not a substantial amount went down that was enough to smother the benthic macroinvertebrates. So we're in good shape on that level also. Also, Colorado was present and was able to get ahead of, I guess I'm done. Colorado. Check the, hello, Blue Ranger 7. They did cut me off, I could tell. They did get out in front of it with trout fingerlings in front of the plume. Plume went over them. Fingerlings are okay except for one, and Colorado wasn't sure whether they injured that fish putting it in. So we think we're in good shape. Once again, sticking 100 fish in front of a plume is not exactly a scientific experiment. But let me tell you, if those fish had died, there would be a whole lot of scientific experimentation going on right now. So the water right now, it's good. The sediments, that's where the metals that were in the water fell out and joined the sediments that are sitting on the bottom. What we did is we took into account, and I have kids go play in the sediment, they come out, it's remarkable how much dirt they can have on coming out of a water system. So we take that into account. One of the things we assume is that the kids will play in it for 60 days. They will get dirt all over their hands. Where do the hands go? right to their mouth. Well, other than the mouth, where they go doesn't tend to get sediment into the system. But we assume that those kids are actually eating 200 milligrams of that sediment a day. We also assume that mothers are there trying to clean the kid off, and they get some, that goes to their mouth. So we're assuming that the mothers or the adults would be ingesting 100 milligrams a day for 60 days of what's there. That did not trigger our level of concern. Once again, the trigger level prior to going. So we're confident we're not having false negatives, or we're saying there's not a problem when in fact there is. So we did not trip those levels with the sediments here in New Mexico. Colorado, they believe they're getting closer to what it was before. And on Monday evening, I'll have that data all in nice little charts, and we can show you what it looks like from where it started all the way down to here. Thank you, and I'll now return to my seated position.
Hi, good evening. My name is Patrick Young, and I heard a few of the audience members talk about Navy and Coast Guard, and I think you'll be surprised that I'm neither. I'm a U.S. Public Health Service officer. I'm an environmental health officer. Public Health Service has been around since President Adams. So we came out of the Navy, so we keep some of the similar naval uniforms. So as a U.S. Public Health Service environmental health officer, I'm stationed with the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. And we kind of shorten that name by calling it ATSDR for short. And ATSDR, we look at, we're the Federal Health Agency for Chemicals, and then we are also co-located with US EPA. Our agency was created out of the 1980 Superfund Legislation Act. Congress created us predominantly to look at health effects on Superfund sites. So as a regional rep, I'm your regional rep. I'm stationed in Dallas. I'm actually co-located with EPA, and with Mark Hayes here, I'm just a couple steps away from EPA. So if EPA would like to have some public health support, we provide that. I was invited down by our OSC, Mark Hayes, to provide some technical support and to coordinate with the health department. The health department is your lead federal health agency here in the state. We provide technical support to the health department. One of the things that we did for New Mexico is set up a few phone numbers and lines that you guys can call for health questions, and I'd like to share some of those with you. The New Mexico Department of Health set up a 24/7 number, and if you had like toxicology question, or your child was in the water, or you maybe got something in your mouth, you just had a general health question. That phone number is 505-827-0006. So now I'll repeat that, 505-827-0006. We also have worked with the New Mexico Poison Control Center, and yesterday we had Dr. Seifert join us. He's the medical director for the New Mexico Poison Center. So we also have a resource that you all can call 24/7. That's the Poison Control Center for if maybe you had some medical questions. And Dr. Seifert is available to address those, and that phone number is 1-800-222-1222. And I'll repeat that, 1-800-222-1222. We also have partnered with the Navajo Department of Health and for the Navajo Nation. So if we have some tribal questions involving health, I have that number as well. That number is 928-206-2318. So ATSDR, we are a science-based health organization, and we rely on data to review. So that environmental data that's collected, ATSDR can provide technical support and review that. Our headquarters is located in Atlanta, Georgia, and we're co-located with the CDC.
Good evening. My name is Tom Blaine. I'm the New Mexico State Engineer. And I come with some good news for our farmers and irrigators. and livestock producers. Today we received some results from some testing that we've been doing. When we first came on ground back last Friday, a week ago today, wow, how time flies. We started looking at ways that we could analyze the situation with sampling and how to return the river and the use of the water for irrigation and livestock purposes back to what we would call a safe and normal condition. And it has taken literally the efforts of multiple agencies to formulate these plans, to look at studies, to look at testing results, and to come up with a plan that is safe for the public. I want to really recognize the efforts between the Office of State Engineer, the New Mexico Environment Department, and the Department of Ag. Without that coalition, we would not be where we're at today. So on with the good news. After looking at results from tests that have been run, we have devised a plan that will return normal operations for irrigation and livestock watering from the Animas and San Juan River below the confluence. And that will include lifting the ban on the use of water for irrigation and livestock watering with the following provisions. The ditches are being instructed to flush their system from the diversion works to the first sluice or wastewater return ditch that returns water back to the river. And what this will do is it will ensure that any of the contaminants that are able to be mobilized by running water will return back to the river. We do anticipate that there will be sediment left in the ditches. It is heavier than the material, than the soils and the silts that line your ditches now. So we don't expect all of that material to be remobilized. So we do anticipate that there will be residues, and we will continue to monitor those residues to ensure that they're not able to be remobilized. And after the irrigation season, there may be some remediation that we look at. These questions are still being asked, and we're working on some of the solutions for that. We ask that the flushing of the ditches take place for at least 12 hours prior to resuming to normal operations for the ditch. We are not, we are working with the ditches. We are calling each of the ditch superintendents and asking them for their cooperation in this. And you guys have been doing this a long time. You know, you are the ones that will figure out how to re-energize or reinitialize the operations of your ditch. We want to leave that to the ditch superintendents and each of the ditch companies. And we encourage that you advise and work with our staff at the Aztec district office and be in full communication with them. We need to ensure that there is coordination with flushing of the ditches and resuming of irrigation and livestock watering practices with other things that are going to be taking place simultaneously. There are surface water diversions that Secretary Flynn will talk about that are going to have to be addressed. There are recreational uses. We just need to know as much information about what our ditches are doing that are going to affect the river, so we don't have any surprises. We are going to continue to monitor and sample the river, and we will do that in cooperation with the New Mexico Environment Department. We are the water quantity folks, and New Mexico Environment Department is the water quality. And sometimes our lines get blurred, and we need to communicate with each other just to ensure that there is full cooperation and a full restoration to a safe and normal practice for irrigation and livestock watering. So that's the good news for the day.
Good evening. That's the most recent good news for the day. Good evening. My name is Ryan Flynn. I'm the Secretary of Environment. First of all, really appreciate your patience. The state engineer and I were literally working on the ditch irrigation issues right up until we arrived at this meeting. So apologize we were a little late for you all, and it's not because we don't value you and your time. It's because we're literally working. He was on the phone with some of the ditch superintendents, and we were trying to closely coordinate some of the public water system intake issues that we're working on. Earlier today, we announced that we had lifted the prohibition on using domestic wells and irrigation wells. And so we thought that was a very good first step. The state, in consultation with all the state agencies involved, in particular our agency and the State Department of Health, and they had a team of 5 epidemiologists that were involved in the conversations, had analyzed the data, analyzed the hydrogeology of the area, and made a recommendation regarding the lifting the prohibition or the precautionary advisory on the domestic and irrigation wells. So that decision was based really on 2 parts. Number one, the sampling and analysis for the dissolved metals came back showing that the metals were below the drinking water standard. Secondly, based on understanding and all of the field work that we've been doing over the past week, we were able to determine that the river is a gaining river, meaning that groundwater is actually flowing toward the river rather than having, right now, groundwater is currently flowing toward the river, rather than having the river, the surface water, actually feeding the groundwater. So I'm not a scientist, but I've done my best to explain as succinctly as possible the basis that our team of scientists, including, we've got a National Academy of Sciences member, and a variety of other just outstanding men and women working on our team made. We made that decision in consultation with EPA, and we really appreciated their ability to move that forward and get it done at the highest level. So that is one really positive development, as well as obviously the irrigation news that you just heard, which is a second major piece of important news, and we very much understand and appreciate what an outstanding agricultural area this is in the state, and so we're pleased that we're finally starting to see some progress. Along the lines of progress, we are anticipating, we are not there yet, but we anticipate within the next 24 to 48 hours that we will begin to lift the prohibitions on the public water system intakes, as well as make a recommendation on allowing recreation to move forward in the river. So we're not there yet. I'm going to be crystal clear, I'm not making that announcement. But we are beginning to get there. One of the issues that we saw up in Colorado For whatever reason, there did not seem to be close alignment between the EPA and the state, as well as between some of the different agencies in the state, was that they didn't coordinate the flushing of their ditches with the drinking water system intakes. So they had advised the public water system to begin drawing from the river. The irrigation ditches began shortly thereafter, or a day or half a day later. They began flushing the irrigation ditches, and then they had to put out a turbidity advisory because of the turbidity, which would create some problems for the public water system. So by having really a great team and my close relationship with the state engineer as well as our staffs just working very well together, I think we're closely coordinating these decisions. So we want to provide sufficient time for those irrigation ditches to flush, and then we will be moving forward with allowing the public water systems to begin resuming intake from the river. At that time, we will make the simultaneous with the recommendation to the public water systems, we will make the recommendation to the county regarding the recreational use of the river. I would anticipate that the recreational use will come with a couple important conditions, one of which would be we will not advise people to, it will be catch and release for all fishing in the river until further notice. So we will be making a decision on both of those issues, hopefully within the next 24 to 48 hours at the latest. I think we feel like we're very close, but we want these decisions to be vetted through EPA, and we want to be able to really have that close alignment, as well as, like I said, we need to time these decisions right so we don't have the problems that we saw up in Colorado. So that's where we are, and those two kind of critical items. Earlier today, some of you all may have heard that the governor announced the formation of a long-term team to monitor the impacts of the spill on the area. And I think the one thing that I want to mention specifically, because I see a couple of people here this evening, was how that decision came about and why specifically the governor said that we will have members of the public participate in that effort. And it's because of feedback that we've heard from you all at these public meetings, as well as our understanding and agreement that this area has an just outstanding wealth of resources. So we do not believe that decisions like this need to be made by us in a room away from you and then have us show up and tell you what you need to think or believe. We want you to be involved in that process and on that team, analyzing impacts on wildlife, on the river, on the agricultural sector, as well as addressing another major issue that we think needs to be addressed for the long term in the community, and that is how to ensure that domestic wells are safe in the long term. I wanted to mention that just because it will be a partnership between the state, the local community, and members of the public in that effort. We have a lot of outstanding scientific expertise. EPA has a lot of outstanding scientific expertise. You all have a lot of outstanding scientific, medical expertise, agricultural, across all sectors. And so we believe you should be involved in that process, and you will be involved in that process moving forward. Thank you. Thank you. It was a good idea. And we know enough to listen to good ideas. And so this was truly, and the governor really made it clear to me that she wanted me to tell you that this was not, this was an idea that was born out of the feedback and input she received from this community, and I thought that was great. And for the reasons I said, she said, I don't like when people come and talk to me like I'm not smart. I know I'm smart, I can participate, and I want to be included in decisions when I'm a member of the public. And I heard that loud and clear from you all, and most importantly, she did. The last piece I would mention is that, just quick update, we've provided over 600 tests for domestic wells over the past week that we've been here. We continue to do sampling of all field work, sampling domestic wells. The state and EPA have been doing that field work for the domestic wells together, and we've accumulated a tremendous amount of information that's going to be helpful. It's been helpful for us in the short term, but it's also going to be valuable for this community in the long term. And so I really appreciate you all, first of all, coming to us with your samples and working with us, and just how kind and patient you've been, as well as letting us come to your homes, come on your land, and take those, do that field work at your domestic wells. That is critical for us. And you know, we're Westerners and we're independent, and it takes a lot to invite people. We'll invite you into our home, we'll give you a meal, and we'll treat you right, that's for sure. But you know, letting a bunch of strangers with strange objects and instruments come onto your land and start poking around in your well, it requires trust, and we really appreciate that you're letting us do that, and we will make sure all that information is shared with you going forward. So again, I just want to thank all of you, and I'll sit down and shut up, but I think we've got some really good news, and I appreciate everything that you all in this community have done for us, and it's an honor just to be serving you, so thank you.
Thank you, Red. I'd like to call up Bonnie Hopkins to provide an update real quick. Or Bonnie, do you want to just grab a mic and?
I don't need a mic.
Okay.
Yeah, on the agricultural side, we're doing really, really well. We've delivered well over 300,000 gallons of irrigation water and about 20,000 gallons of water for livestock in the last couple of days. The hay delivery requests did not come in as strongly as we had anticipated, so we were able to fulfill everyone that called in for those up to this point. Right now, we do have people scheduled to have deliveries over the weekend. I'm going to be contacting those people first thing tomorrow morning and making sure they still need that resource, or whether or not their ditch has progressed to a point that they can or like their wells. So we're looking good from the agricultural community. Everybody's been really patient and very understanding and stuck together just like we all knew we could do. So I know I appreciate your patience.
Good. Thank you, Bonnie. Just a quick announcement and update on these community meetings. We will not have a community meeting until Monday evening at 6 p.m. here at the Civic Center. We hopefully will have basically a meeting that is getting back to normal, answering questions, and we do want to essentially have some dialogue with you all about any further concerns that you might have. With regard to Secretary Flynn and the announcement also from Mr. Blaine, along with the data of the EPA, we're starting to see some very positive things come forward. I know there's a lot of anxious people downstream wanting to know the same. But at this point in time, we think with the positive things that we're seeing, we're getting very close in the next 24 to 48 hours. So with that, what we're going to do is we're going to break out. We'll allow you to approach the experts to talk about data, talk about questions regarding anything else that you may have. We're happy to be approached and would love to visit with you. Again, I can't say enough about the involvement that you've brought forth, your interest in this issue. I am I'd be remiss if I did not say this time and time again, of what a collaborative effort this has been and will continue to be. Obviously, as we get more and more improvement with regard and the findings we find out with the streams, that this is something that's not going to stop. It will continue on as what Secretary Flynn has indicated, and as what Martin Heinrich has also indicated at the federal level. So I thank you, Representative.
Yes, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can I have a mic?
Sure.
Thank you. I have a very tough question for the state engineer. It's my understanding that your wedding anniversary was yesterday. What are you doing here?
Well, his wife told me that because of all the pollutants that was attached to him, that she didn't want to touch him.
You know, I think what we've learned from this is that, and we've learned it, and when we've been studying the structure of state government, that the problem with state government, often any problem with government at all, is that we have these silos of authority. And that if it works a lot better if they communicate with each other. And I think that you at the state level and the county level have done that, and I think you've shown the importance of that. It could have been done more widely, because if you ask anybody here, they would have told you that the wells are supplied not by the river, but by the irrigation system in the floodplain. And so you wouldn't have had to issue all these inflammatory statements about not drinking the water, not bathing in the water, which was not necessary. And of course, the federal government has got silos. I mean, you guys are not just missile silos, but you have these silos of authority. And I think communication is the big problem. Why? Was it 24 hours before you announced to people that you had a problem with this river? And why did you not notify the state of New Mexico and not the county emergency management immediately? Can somebody answer that?
No, excuse me.
Yeah, Ronnie, you want to?
Yeah, so this is what I said on a call that the regional administrators have, and the regional administrator for region, the regional administrator for Region 8.
That's the one that doesn't work.
That one, that's the one.
Good one. Want to try this one?
This won't take long. And I'm just going to reiterate what he said. So this is what I heard him tell the press, is that whenever it happened, the folks in the field at the time thought that the event was a smaller size event, and they designed their response accordingly. After 24 hours, they recognized the size of the event was what it turned out to be, and that's when the notifications outside the state of Colorado started to happen. And so it was a mistake that happened when the event happened to determine the size. So once they knew it, they called us, and we called the state as soon as we were notified in Region 6. So it was a mistake that happened in Region 8 with regard to the size of the event whenever it happened that caused them delay. That was what I understand him to say.
Thank you, silos again. And one question I have is it's a really easy question. Did the state take samples when the plume first appeared, when the plume was going through in its strongest?
Yes.
And are those going to be made available soon?
They've already been made available. Representative Van, you should just check. They were made available days ago.
On your website?
Absolutely.
Okay, maybe I have trouble reading it.
Yeah, maybe.
But anyway, thank you. I'm very happy that we're back to normal, and I appreciate all the work that everyone has done. Thank you.
Thank you. So
Go home.
that'll be, again, Monday night at 6 p.m. We will have a follow-up community meeting. This panel is definitely happy to meet with you one-on-one, whomever agency you prefer, to answer any questions that you have. Thank you for your patience, and we continue to progress to getting back to where we were. So thank you, and Godspeed to all of you.